Hi, welcome in this session on DataMiner dashboards, where we will take a closer look at the Node Edge components, previously under soft launch, but now released in DataMiner version 10.1.5. Okay, let's have a look at the first example. In this dashboard, I have prepared two queries, a query with my Nimbra nodes, my Nimbra elements in my DataMiner system, and a second query with my DCF connections. What I want to visualize here in the Node Edge is my Nimbra nodes, which are connected via DCF connections in the DataMiner system. So I'll add Node Edge graph to the dashboard. Okay, and if I look into the data sources that I can link to this component, I can see that the queries is highlighted. So I will try to link my two queries because I need both. I need one for my nodes and I need one for my edges. So I link both to the node edge graph. Okay, that's not enough. I still need some further configuration. So if you go to the settings, after having selected the node edge graph, I see the two queries that I have linked in this unassigned queries list. First query, the query which I've called elements, so which represent my Nimbra nodes. I can set that query as a node query. And then there is still one query unassigned, that's the DCF connections query, and I will set that one as an edge query. For my elements query, I still need to identify my node ID column. Take the element ID because that's a new unique ID. And then I immediately see my nodes appear here. For the edges, I need to specify which is the source and the destination column in my query. So I'll take the source element ID and destination element ID from my DCF data source. And then as a result, I immediately see a node edge graph appearing with my nodes and my edges. My nodes are my Nimbra nodes and my edges are my DCF connections. Let's take a closer look at this first example. Let's start with the queries. So over here I have my node query and over here I have my edge query. My node query basically lists all the elements. So I retrieve all the elements and I filter on a protocol with the regex. So basically you see the result over here on top. I have here a list with all my elements and in that list I have my element ID, my name, and certain other fields and properties for those elements. My edge query is even more simple. It's just retrieving all the DCF connections in my DMS. So not limited to any element at all. No, all the DCF connections in my whole system. For those DCF connections, I have the basic columns, which includes the source element with the element ID and the interface ID. The same for the destination, an ID of the connection, and a flag which says if the connection is internal or not. Okay, let's take a look at the configuration. I've chosen as node ID the element ID. Why did I do that? Mainly because it's a unique ID that identifies each node in the query. But in fact, I could have chosen the name as well. So why did I choose the ID? Well, that's mainly because of the format of my edge query. In my edge query, I need to define links between the nodes, and the information I have here in this edge query are the IDs of the elements. So I have the source element ID and I have the destination element ID. That's the main reason why for my nodes I also have to choose the same format, the same element ID. In case in your edge query you have names over here, in that case you also need to define a name column over here in your edge configuration. So I have my element ID here as node ID, and in my edge configuration I have columns for my source and for my destination, and the data refers to the same format, the same IDs are being used over there. In my queries in this example, I've chosen for an element list with TCF connections, but basically you can choose any data you want. So you can choose views for your nodes, you can choose services, but also if you have some objects and parameter tables in certain elements, you can choose those as well. So anything you can put in your query, you can use it as nodes over here. You can also join your queries with other queries and get more data, more columns into your node query or your edge query. For the edge query, it's important to note that we don't need specific linking in the data miner system itself. The linking between node and edge happens here completely in the dashboard. So you don't need a foreign key relation between tables, for example, in order to make a node edge graph out of it. Then let's take a closer look at the edges still. Therefore, I have another example. In this example, I have split off the initial example over here to the left. So I have my edges over here, but then grouped on source, but it's basically the same edge query. And then on the right-hand side, I have another node edge with the same nodes. So the node query is shared between the two node edge graphs. But I have a custom edge query, which is basically the original one with a filter on a specific source. Why did I do that? Just to show you the difference between the two different types of edges. So on the left side here, the full query, if we take a closer look at what is in there, we can see that, for example, if we look at this edge, this connection between those two nodes here, we see that it is split up in two parts. Why is that? Well, that's basically because there are two rows which are referring to this connection. We have one node from the 16 here to the 5218, right? And we have another line in our table going from the 5218 to 5216. So we have a connection, or we have a line from source to destination and one back from destination to source. That's why it is split up in two parts with their own KPIs, with their own settings in the pop-up. So that's basically if you want to split off certain metrics from your source or your destination and you include them in your edge query, you can link them to a specific side of the connection. If you look at the right-hand side, because we have filtered the edges on one specific source, there is only one connection or one line in our table which refers to the connection between 5216 and 5218. That's also why we have a full highlighting on that line, like you see over here. And that's basically because indeed we have only one row in our edge query referring to that connection.